So today, instead of having a conversation, I thought we would have a discussion about Deaf Awareness Month. And this is September, and so I really need to kind of add that or include it, right? So here's a few facts. I hope I just don't go on and on and on because I probably can, especially about some of the topics. Anyway, every country has its own sign language. It's not universal. They're trying to get one for for like international meetings and some things, but it's not going to be used for every country. Only for those meetings. Anyway, but they develop their own language depending on how that language used in that country. So here it's American Sign Language, which is a combination of home signs and English Sign Language from way, way, way back, not what they use today, and French Sign Language. So it's a combination. But every country develops its own, and it's how that language is used there. So it's not universal. Anyway, so it says the fact, I didn't know this one, but it says 2 to 3 children out of 1,000 are deaf or have some hearing loss. And so the entire world's disabilities, deafness is number 3. So they have different disabilities, but deafness is the third most common disability. Hearing loss, it varies from technically called hard of hearing all the way to profound, and this is like an inept, and this is like you're profoundly deaf. You can't hear anything like a siren or anything like that. And it can be in one ear or both, so either one. And the first public school for deaf children in America was in 1917. So they had their own deaf school 1817, and 100 years later, they had the first public school for deaf children. Deaf children, it impacts their communication, and what happens is it's 90% of deaf children, their parents don't learn sign language. Only 10% of the parents learn sign language. So 90%, this is how it goes. So they're born deaf. Parents, they can know now. They test their hearing at birth, but before that they didn't. But they would grow up and they were deaf, and even if they found out that they go, no, they can't hear. They most of the time they didn't do anything because either they were poor or didn't know, or the doctor said, to force them to go and talk to them and have them learn to lip read, and that's all. That is old information because you have to have a foundation of a language. So what would happen is they would have no language except like pointing. They'd see the expressions on people's face. They still don't know what was really going on, and so then they would go to school, like I say, at 5, and they didn't know language, and so then they would put them in a deaf education class, and the teacher only has 2 classes of sign language, and bam, they are a deaf education teacher. Well, they have to have, their education degree. I'm not saying that, but for deafness and signing, only 2 classes. So then they go there, and there's this teacher signing to them, and they don't know what that means. I mean, they try and teach them. Or if they're hard of hearing, but they really don't know a lot of sign language because their parents aren't learning, they put them into a mainstream with an interpreter. and they still don't know the language. So it's really, they have a struggle because the parents are not learning sign language. They struggle a lot with that communication. If the parents learn, then they have that more of advantage. They understand, they can learn English better because they have this foundational language. So that's very, very important, is to have a foundational language. For us to learn a foreign language, we have to have a foundational language. It doesn't matter what that language is, you must have a foundational language. So if we know English, we can learn other languages because we can compare and contrast and and that means that in this language, and I can take that, prefix or whatever. But deaf children do not have that advantage. So deaf children learn differently, and that's just because they can't hear. And so they have to more of a picture and a sign, and then the written word on how to understand. Okay, let's go. I was so afraid I was going to get way into that on my soapbox. But deaf people are very direct when they communicate. And I think the reason why is because they only know what they are told. For example, hearing children as they're playing or doing something, they overhear parents or adults, family chatting and talking about different things. So you learn really a lot as a child, not because the parents sits you down and tells you what's up and what's going on. You hear it. And you hear it from your friends' parents and those things. So that's how they learn. But deaf children, they don't hear that. So let's just say you're playing in silence. You're playing, but you don't hear the TV. You don't hear the parents or the adults. You don't hear your brothers or sisters. And so you just have your own little world, and that you're playing and you're doing things and you learn from that play, but you don't hear other conversation. You don't hear when other people are getting in trouble or why. You have to see that and you're going, oh, they're getting in trouble and I wonder why. So they don't know that information. So if a person sits down with them and tells them it's time to eat, and so it's when they're young, it's mostly commands, right? Time to brush your teeth, time to go to bed, did you do your homework, don't do that, stop, finish, right? So commands, that's all they know. So because parents do that, or they point and get over there or whatever, then they're more direct in what they say. Like if you have gained weight, they'll say, oh, you're fat, and they're not trying to be disrespectful. They don't understand the rules of etiquette. And so, and they have to be taught that. But who? If the parents never learn sign language, who teaches them that? So they're more direct in their communication than hearing people. We have more of varying ways to say things. So that's just a habit. They're not being rude. You may get your feelings hurt, but it's like if you've gained weight, oh, are you pregnant? And you're going, no. And one time I said, do I look like it? She goes, yeah, that's why I asked. Okay, well, all right, so they can, but they're just direct. They're not trying to offend. So just FYI, just remember that. Okay, so the next one is. It says, and this is true, people think, oh, deaf people can't drive, they can't hear a siren or whatever. But the statistics show that deaf people are better drivers than hearing drivers. And why is that? And it's because they're not distracted by other noise. Most of the time, not the radio. They're not... distracted by other sounds that's going on. They're looking at the mirrors and the mirrors and the mirrors, and they drive. And let's be honest, if I hear a siren, I don't know where it's from. I hear it, but I'm going, I don't see it, and so a deaf person, they don't hear it, but they're driving. But then when they see the ambulance or they see people moving over, when all the cars are doing this or whatever, then they can look and see. So they're not as distracted as much as hearing drivers, because we depend on what we hear. We can be, I got to get something out of my purse or my drink, or whatever that you're trying to do, because you depend upon what you're hearing more than a deaf person who always depends on what they see and never what they hear. So that's why statistically it shows that they are better drivers. If you have your mirrors and your mirror, you can drive. You don't have to be hearing. So that's statistic. Anyway, so then here's so how do we? I typed all this up to put on my office door, and so now I've got all these tapes on here. So and so now everything has to be closed captioned, like movies and on your TV. Everything now that's new. So you may have an old movie or an old show and they don't have closed captioning. Well, following the ADA, everything has to be closed caption, and it's not only for the deaf. It's also for hard of hearing, or senior citizens. They lose their hearing, and so people, they can't hear really well, and the closed captioning is really helpful. Some people go, oh, it's in the way and I can't see the screen, but they've improved all that, and I use closed captioning all the time, so I can remember what it's like for deaf people. So all like videos and everything must have closed captioning. And so like if you work in a school or a college, or if you're at work and you need to to show a presentation, everything should have closed captioning, subtitles on that. So it's helpful to do that. And so normally, like if you're in an audience or you're doing like an office presentation, most people need to if there's a deaf person there, they need to take turns when they talk, and they need to talk clearly instead of So it's very important so they can understand and be part of the conversation. May have that talk to text on their phone, and they may have it on the table, and so if the person is not speaking clearly, then the texting will be all not clear. So and I know many deaf use that as well, so they can understand what's going on in the conversation or in the meeting if they don't have an interpreter. And you see more and more interpreters now, but because ever since COVID, many interpreters don't want to work out there in person. I prefer that myself, but so they have video relay, video, you can have the phone relay, and you can have a VP video relay, those different signs for that. So so VP is a pretty popular, or used to be video relay when we first started with that. But so the interpreters are there. So many times in the meetings they won't hire an interpreter, but they don't have the equipment to have a video relay interpreter. So anyway, so that's why many people will use the talk to text technology on their phone. And it's really cool. They continue to improve it, so it helps. It doesn't take the place of an interpreter, but it's pretty good, especially if they're hard of hearing, because they can see the facial expressions and read it at the same time. But like a profoundly deaf person would not be able to look at the person and then read it at the same time. They would have to, that's why an interpreter is important, because they can see facial expressions and body language and know with the signs what is being said. And so it's a clear picture, and the talking to text doesn't do that. So that's why they have all these differences, technologies, and that's why we have deaf people have a preference. Okay, I think we've kind of gone on long enough, but I think those are the make sure you're in a well-lit area if you're talking with deaf, and you're directly face to face, and you speak clearly, and you don't cover your mouth, and people with beards, that needs to be trimmed if they're working with a deaf person. And then to get their attention, you don't holler, right? You either tap them on the shoulder, or you can stomp your foot or do that, but sometimes that's really noisy. So sometimes you can wave in their face if it's close by, because if you don't want to, because that's pretty loud, right? And I've seen people do that, but shoulder or waving in their face is the best way. So anyway, I didn't want this video to be too long, but I wanted to give you the statistics about deaf people for deaf awareness and how to work with them and give them the respect and know a little bit about their culture and how they communicate. So have a good day, and I will see you later. Bye.